Welcome to the Explainer. So you're a Jeep owner and you've got that dreaded code U0100 staring you in the face. It's one of those really confusing communication errors, right? But what does that even mean? Well, today we're going to clear all that up.
You plug in your scanner, and there it is, U0100. It definitely looks intimidating, but don't worry, you're in exactly the right place. In this explainer, we're going to break down what your Jeep is trying to tell you and walk you through the precise steps to get it solved.
So what is this U010 code anyway? It basically means lost communication. Think of all the computers in your car as being on a network. The main brain of that network, the engine control module, or ECM, has suddenly lost the signal from another critical part. It's kind of like a dropped call right in the middle of a really important conversation.
Okay, so where do we even begin? Well, we're not just going to start guessing. We are going to follow a really logical, step-by-step path, starting with the absolute simplest and, honestly, most common culprits first, the circuits and the battery. Here it is, our diagnostic roadmap. We're going to move through these 5 areas, and we're going to do it in this exact order. And trust me, following this path is so important because it means we check the easy, low-cost fixes first. That alone could save you a ton of time and money. First things first, a simple visual inspection. We're looking at something called the CAN bus. That's the Controller Area Network. You can just think of it as the information superhighway for all your car's electronics. We need to physically get our eyes on the wiring and the connectors. Are they damaged? Are they loose? Is anything obviously broken?
All right, next up, let's check the power source itself. A weak or unstable battery is the #1 cause of all sorts of weird electronic gremlins in modern cars. If that battery isn't putting out consistent power, it can create total communication chaos and, you guessed it, trigger that U0100 code.
So here is the magic number. You're going to want to grab a voltmeter and check your battery. The healthy, acceptable range is between 10 and 16 volts. If you get a reading that's outside that little window, the battery itself could literally be the entire problem. It's such a simple check that could save you a massive headache.
Okay, so what if the wiring looks good and the battery checks out? Well, that means we need to dive a little bit deeper. Now we're going to start checking the actual data messages and the power supply to specific modules in the system. Your car is constantly sending these little data packets back and forth. You can think of them like digital handshakes between components. Some of these messages are absolutely critical, like the ones for the ignition system or the vehicle's ID number, the VIN. If that digital handshake fails, the ECM can lose track of other modules, and boom, it throws the U0100 code. Next, we're going to zoom in on one key player, the front control module, or FCM. Now, before we go and blame the module itself, we have to check its lifeline, which is its power. We need to make absolutely sure that the FCM has a stable source of power and a solid ground connection. It's simple, right? No power means no communication. So if all of our external checks are good, the wiring is solid, the battery is strong, the power supply is there, then we have to turn our attention to our final suspect, the front control module itself. Now, this is really important to realize. The problem might not be a physically broken part. It could just be confused software. See, the FCM has to be configured specifically for your vehicle. If those settings are somehow wrong or corrupted, it can cause all sorts of communication failures. So the next logical step is to check that configuration and, if you can, reset it.
And this right here is exactly why we followed our diagnostic path so carefully. Because as our source material points out, messing with the module itself is usually the last resort, because it can be a pretty costly repair.
And that brings us here, to the very end of the diagnostic road. If we have systematically, step by step, ruled out every other possibility, the wiring, the battery, the power connections, and the software configuration, then, and only then, are we left with a conclusion that the front control module itself has probably failed and needs to be replaced.
Phew, okay, so we have walked through that entire process from start to finish. Let's recap all of that and boil it down into a simple, actionable checklist that you can use.
And here it is. This is your game plan. This checklist puts it all together, summarizing that whole diagnostic path, starting from the simplest checks and working our way down to the most complex. Start at the top and just work your way down. This is your best shot at finding the real root cause of that U0100 code.
By understanding the logic behind just this one code, you've actually gotten a pretty powerful insight into how all your vehicle systems talk to each other. So, we'll leave you with this thought. Now that you know how to listen a little better, what other mysteries is your car trying to tell you?